Anything serious?
No, just a simple request. Tell my announcer that I will change my first number. I'll play You Can't Scare Me Away, dedicated to someone who ought to know.
Yes, sir.
NILS Asthler, Part 4. NILS was able to move back to America in 1940 and resume work, but was delegated to mostly supporting roles for the remainder of his career here. While several of these roles were B-movies and/or at Poverty Row Studios, they still allowed NILS to showcase his considerable talent and enter a new phase of his career as a character actor. His first film back in the USA was 1941's The Man Who Lost Himself, in which he supported Kay Francis and Brian Aherne. While it was a comedy, it saw NILS return to his niche as the other man. The Night of January 16th, which was based on the play of the same name by Ayn Rand, saw NILS return to another niche, the calculating, suave, yet despicable villain. He played Bjorn Faulkner, a crooked embezzler that frames his secretary, played by Ellen Drew, and fakes his own death. Robert Preston played the leading man, an employee of Faulkner's that ends up being an investigator into the case. Check out this clip with NILS and Ellen Drew.
Hello, Kit. I didn't want this to happen, Kit. I tried to warn you.
I know. But I had to see you.
You knew I was alive?
I recognize your voice on a big...
Spoiler alert, Faulkner reveals to Kit his dastardly plan about how he faked his death. It is very cool to see that NILS had honed his ability to play a villain that you love to hate even more, making him even more simultaneously deplorable and fascinating. I also quite enjoy Ellen Drew's performance in the scene as well, especially when she coolly says, "Oh, I know." The New York Times said the performances of Robert Preston, Ellen Drew, and NILS Asthler, who returns to the screen after an absence of some years, are neatly and often humorously turned. Put this entertainment down as a minor but gratifying offering. NILS next made The Night Before the Divorce in 1942, which was a suspense comedy that saw him as Victor Rosell, a celebrity musician. Take a look.
Mr. Roselli, will you please, Mr. Roselli?
That's a fair exchange, isn't it?
Oh, thank you. Hey, make mine the same, kid.
I'm awfully sorry. I haven't got time.
While Victor appears to be a more gentlemanly character for NILS based on that clip, there appeared to be something underneath per usual. And per usual, there was. Victor is trying to put the moves on a married woman, which leads to his untimely murder that then sets off a series of comedic murder mystery situations. 1943 saw NILS playing an evil Nazi spy commander in Submarine Alert, and Ricky Moreno, a pianist in Mystery Broadcast, who also is a murder suspect. Mystery Broadcast had a fun, curious plot that involved radio detectives that set out to solve a real cold case. Check out this scene.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Miss Cornell. This is indeed a pleasant surprise. I was expecting the police.
Oh, well, Chief Daniels has been delayed. I hope.
What's this?
$500 in cash. As you know, Mr. Stanley pays me for writing a radio program. And I'm in the habit of paying everyone who contributes to that program.
Uh-huh. And my contribution?
Mr. Marino, did Eve Stanley ever tell you anything about Lenore Fenwick's first husband?
Miss Cornell, I don't know the answer to your $500 question.
As you saw, yet again, he was that quintessential suave villain that exudes charm and menace. NILS moved into 1944 playing an honorable police detective in Bluebeard. It was a true change of pace. NILS was a detective out to find a serial killer that is targeting beautiful ladies. You can see NILS as the inspector here.
Monsieur Morel, you saw the body. It is Renee, all right. Renee? Renee Clermont. She's been singing for me in my puppet show for almost a year now.
Oh, I see. Sorry, these are all routine questions. Morel, how did you know the girl was missing?
She was to have rehearsed with me this morning. When she didn't show up, I went to her room. When there was no answer, I got the concierge to let me in. Her bed had not been slept in. I called again a little while ago. She had not turned up. The concierge it was told me the police found another girl in the Seine this morning. Another victim of Bluebeard, so I got worried.
As the inspector questions the potential suspect/witness, you can see Nils portraying the inspector as the seen-it-all, hardened policeman. It's refreshing to see him as the good guy and equally interesting as his villainous roles. The film seems to have been well received and has become a cult classic over the years and developed a large following. I recommend watching it because it is about to be Halloween. Nils made 1945's Jealousy at the Poverty Row Republic Pictures. He played a husband in turmoil yet again, but this time an alcoholic, which added a new fascinating layer to Nils' usual type. Spoiler alert, his death becomes a major plot point yet again, too. Look at Nils with Jane Randolph in this scene.
Oh, Peter, how could you even think of such a thing?
Because there was nothing else to do.
It's very interesting to see how subtle the nuances were that Nils put into portraying an alcoholic. You can see the unhappiness that the addiction causes in his mannerisms, facial expressions, and physicality. The Man in Half Moon Street, also released in 1945, saw Nils top billed for the first time in years. He played a scientist, Dr. Julian Carell, that is working to develop an anti-aging system by murdering victims and using parts of their bodies. It was almost like The Picture of Dorian Gray meets The Mystery of the Wax Museum meets Dr. X. The New York Times gave Nils a pretty good review saying, "By playing the scientist with a restraint that almost makes him appear normal, Mr. Astor merely points up the incredibleness of the story all the more." Nils made just 4 more films in Hollywood in the 1940s before trying to make the move to television in the early 1950s and then returning to the movies again with 1953's The Man from Tangier, which curiously saw him top billed again. Nils played Count Henri, a man that discovers another man was pretending to be him to marry a wealthy American heiress. After making a few more TV appearances, Nils had enough of keeping up the rat race of being a Hollywood actor and returned to his native Sweden. While he was initially down on his luck, he eventually found both stage and film work in Sweden. He made 3 more films there and 1 in Denmark, all of which saw him in starring roles. By 1963, Nils decided to retire once and for all. Nils appears to have lived in quiet retirement in Sweden and worked on his autobiography that I mentioned earlier until his death 18 years later at the age of 84 in 1981. So, we are left with the question, why was Nils' major film stardom so brief, taking him from silent to talkies before seeing him transition to supporting and character roles? Why did he not maintain his foothold as the dashing yet villainous leading man? While many have stated it was his thick Swedish accent, I don't agree. In all of his films that I have watched, his accent is very subtle and hardly noticeable sometimes, even in that first talkie of 1930, The Seabat. I think the real answer is similar to that of Jack Gilbert. MGM just didn't know what to do with him in talking pictures and mismanaged his career. They gave him a brief supporting role as his talkie debut, and he was forced to leave and look for other opportunities. Fortunately, unlike Jack Gilbert, Nils was able to bounce back from the mismanagement, leave MGM, and find other opportunities. Even when he was blacklisted in Hollywood, he still found work in England before returning and carving a whole new niche yet again for himself as a character actor. No matter what film or the size of his role, Nils managed to create extremely fascinating characters and steal the show and command the audience's attention and hypnotize them just as he hypnotized most of his leading ladies. Thank you, NILS ASTHER, for your performances, your sensational portrayals, and especially for your creation of so many colorful villains. It is a privilege that we have so many of your films available to watch online. Please check out my YouTube video descriptions for links of where you can watch and stream Nils' work. Next week, join me as I investigate the silent to talkie career of the great Vilma Banky. I'm Charlie from Silent to Talkies. Have a great rest of your weekend.